Hello out there. This is Wine, Women, and Writing. You've reached the show, and I'm Pamela Fagan Hutchins. And this is the 20 minutes or so down and talk with other authors about their fiction, about books that feature strong female characters. That often means I'm talking to strong females themselves. And that is going to be the case today. As soon as I get through the obligatory announcement, so hold that thought. First, if you want to pre-work for these shows so that you can kind of book club with me, then go out to my website where you'll find the upcoming shows. You'll see past shows. You can watch the videos or listen to the podcasts. I would also recommend that you check out the other shows in the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. This is I want to also start out right by, I'm so good at this. Hold on, let me turn off that banner. I want to start out right by showing you that Pam Stack was already up this morning and saying hi to our guest. Our guest today is Pamela Summie. She's the author of To Lay to Rest, our guest, and also a publicist extraordinaire. So welcome to the show, Caitlin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. As you saw on Facebook, I was just aglow. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. We met a couple of years ago, actually, and in Houston at a some kind of conference.
I think we were there for the Houston Writers Guild, and we were both speaking and presenting, and we ended up at the same lunch table trying to survive the lunchbox we got, I think.
Exactly. That was it. And as I recall, you also are the publicist for an author that's a friend of mine, and we're sitting with Anne Weisgarver.
I love Anne Weisgarver.
I do
Actually,
too.
I have worked with her so long, we've become friends now, and she and I were just emailing to check in with each other, because I was so concerned about what was happening in Texas.
Yes.
In her area of Texas. So from publicity, beautiful friendship. Who knew? I'm blessed,
Oh, it's been so wonderful. The people you meet at conferences, the people that you meet, like for me, sometimes in workshops or sitting at a table or whatever, the other authors. It's one of my favorite parts. And as an introvert, I don't know, are you introvert, extrovert?
I'm a mix. I'm very extroverted, but very private.
Right.
So I don't really do well in some venues because I love seeing you, but I'm not going to talk about certain things. I'll say, how are you? Tell me about you.
And I'm a hermit. I live up in Wyoming. That's my porch view in the picture here. But I do fine in social settings, and I overshare on social media. So together we'd make maybe one whole fully realized person.
Yes, there we go. I love that.
But it is really fun to see you again. But it was really especially fun for me. A couple of months ago, I got this email that you had a book, and it wasn't a brand new book, but a book. And I didn't know, shame on me, that you were a writer, that you wrote beautifully, that you had an MFA with distinguished honors from, I think, Colorado State. Is that?
Colorado State, yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a publicist and as a writer, my husband, Rick, is my publicist. Bless him, poor man. But we try to be really careful because, we are publicists. So the fact that you didn't know, we're trying to watch the line, Pamela. So
right. Yeah, it is a tough one because you're promoting clients' work, and if you say too much about yours, it becomes about yours instead, and they're like, well, what about me? But on the other hand, your work is beautiful. So I'm not even sure that originally I was pitched to have you on the show. It may have just been, here, read her book and see what you think. And I stayed up all night, and I'm not usually a short story reader. So I'm sorry to those of you that write flash and short stories. And I was thinking, okay, it's not going to get me because I'm not going to have a plot and I'm not going to, be pulled through. No, I was enraptured. I know, it was beautiful. So, okay, so here's my way of describing these stories. So first of all, 2 weeks ago, I had on the show Danielle Girard with a book set in South Dakota in the winter. So it was all winter and snow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was killing people. So if you took all the winter and snow and you moved it over to Caitlin's book, no one's killing each other. There, instead, it's these beautiful stories of family and love and lost and place and all these heart things. Then you have Caitlin's book. So without the serial killer.
I love that. That's perfect. And I think
because it's cold in your books.
My books are cold. Yeah. I mean, as we were chatting about earlier, I've lived in a lot of places, but what I write about is this one place. I think the cold did something to me as a child. I mean, yeah, I'm always writing about being cold. So,
and you live now in a place that's normal temperatures.
I've lived everywhere. I've lived in Colorado. I've lived in Massachusetts. I've lived in Minnesota, and now I am in what I call the steamy South.
Yes.
I'm in Tennessee, and it actually makes no sense to me. People said to me, well, oh, you'll love the warm weather. And I said, I just don't get it. There's no snow. And I wait all winter for snow. And I'm the only mother on snow days who's gleeful. Everyone else is complaining. And I'm just out there with the kids having a ball.
I love it. Well, I moved away from the Houston area because I don't get that whole steamy thing. It's like, where's the seasons? I need fall and I need snow. And so we moved back to the home of my childhood. So do you think you'll someday end up back in Minnesota?
I don't think so. What we've had happen here is that grandmas and grandpas have followed us, or grandmas and grandpas were here. And the reason we left Colorado was because I broke my foot, and we lived in a 3-story townhouse. And I have 2 children who are very close in age, who were basically 1 and 2. And my husband was called out of town to Miami, and we were snowed in for 3 straight days. And we realized that we could no longer live in a place where we didn't have help, where we didn't have family.
Right.
And in Tennessee, there are hundreds and hundreds of Summies. There would always be somebody who could come dig me out. So we are here, and everyone else has now followed. So we're here.
Well, I think that was probably a wise move. When our kids were younger, we definitely stayed close to the grandparents. Ours are now, we're empty nesters now. And so the kids are like, what are you doing? Because we left them all in Houston and their various other places around the country and moved here. And my husband's from the Virgin Islands. So there are no Hutchins. There's nobody here, but my parents have followed us.
Nice. I love that. Of course I love that, because I'm all about family, which I think is in the story.
I think it's very clear in the stories, your family and snow.
Family and snow. That's actually in graduate school, the teacher I was studying with at the very end, Leslie Becker, who's a dear and wonderful writer in her own right, went around the whole class, Pamela, and talked about what people wrote about. And she skipped me. So I just thought, it's not when you say, wait, what about me? So I just let it go. But one of my friends said, well, but what about Caitlin? And there was this lengthy pause, and I've talked to Professor Becker about it since. But she thought, and she waited, and I thought, oh no, I mean, she can't even think what I write about, But what she came out with was this sort of gravelly, heavy, almost incantation of Caitlin writes about snow. I was like, everyone else writes about loss, everyone else writes about, equity. I write about snow.
Snow is an equalizer. Snow is equity. We are all the same in the face of snow.
Isn't that interesting? I think snow is an equalizer, because when you're that cold, who you are shows. Like when you're really stressed, who you are shows. Exactly. And I think that the snow brings out all those little pesky issues you've had with your sister for 20 years, and you're stuck in the house with her, or all the worries you have in your marriage. I do think weather equalizes, and I think it makes for great tension. I think it brings it out.
It's wonderful tension, both because of the danger and also because of the isolation and the lockdown aspect of it, and and beauty. There's so many things about it that's powerful. We were talking. I always talk with my guests, you guys, before we get on the air, just to check technical issues and to make sure nobody's nervous. Caitlin was great, and we were talking about weather. And about, for us in Wyoming, snow is big, but wind may be bigger. Wind is that thing that makes you insane, but it's a different emotion that it brings out. With snow, you think of books like Misery, or, you know, some of your favorite snow books, and the way it brings out big things, big emotions. And in your stories, and by the way, one of the things that I loved, besides the big family emotions and the power of isolation and weather and the things it was doing, is there were a few rich surprises of continuity that you would get to the end and you'd be like, oh, I see where that person fit into another story earlier. And I totally dig that. So thank you for that little nugget for me. You did that for me.
I did it exactly with you in mind. You know, what's so interesting to me about this is there are 3 stories that connect. And then there are 2 that connect, but I don't think people pick up on it because it's really, really, really subtle. But the connection of those 3 stories, I think, has garnered more comment than a lot of other things. And I feel like, you know, you said you don't normally read short stories. I don't think a lot of people do. And I feel like for the people who really prefer novels, the fact that some of the stories connected was what made the connection, the collection, pardon me, work for them. Was that they felt that it brought out larger themes and sort of carried a through line that gave them the larger story that they want in a novel. And that wasn't planned. So I'm really glad it worked, you know?
The happiest of accidents.
Yeah.
Well, it gave a through line. It gave you different perspectives because you were looking at it from the point of view of maybe someone who was minor in another story, or who you felt differently about in another story. And that was fascinating, partly because the first time that they appeared, the story was so fascinating. Each one, there was not a story in here where I felt like, skip the pages. I really felt with a lot of them like I just sat there at the end of it, you know, kind of with that whoa moment where you're absorbing the big feels, you know, and you're absorbing, you know, I don't want to say tragedy because it's not always tragedy, but the enormity of the human condition, the enormity of family, and the things that we do or we don't do. So it was, to me, it was powerful. And I read this, I think, right at the beginning of COVID. So, you know, it also was so perfect because my attention span was that of a gnat. So I don't know that I was at the point where I was ready to stick with stuff. I was ready to feel, and it gave me that, you know, just like times a million. But I also was able to do it in pieces instead of being forced to commit when my brain was all over the place. So for anybody else that has that problem right now, or in general, it really worked for that without robbing me of a full experience. You know, these were wonderful little worlds in and of themselves, where you could just stop and say, well, if that was all there was, I still got my money's worth. And then you go to the next one and be like, oh, just as good. Oh, so you write snow great.
Thank you. It's really heartening to hear that, because one of the complaints that I've long heard about short stories is that people felt they were taste of life, and that you just got a snapshot of somebody. So to feel that I really wanted to create a whole world so that people felt satisfied as readers. So it's really heartening to hear that you felt that there were whole worlds in there.
Yeah.
And that you felt satisfied that you were not missing anything, that there wasn't more that should have been said. That's really gratifying. Thank you.
All that I really felt at the end is that I would do that again. So now you have to do it again.
Well, I will tell you, since you mentioned the stories that connect, that I have completed the novel of my sisters. So yay, I have Geographies of the Heart done, and it completes the story of what happened to Sarah, Glennie, and dear poor old Al, who is in the middle. I love Al. And it was, and I had a couple readers look at it, and now I have a couple more readers looking at it. So one was Anne. Anne read the first couple of pieces for me because it's a novel and stories. And now I think I'm done, but I'll email you and let you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more readers, I'm happy to be one of them. So you
You're very
just
kind.
let me know. Well, that'll be a treat for all of us. So now, was this always your intention to write a novel and
No,
story,
no.
or were you just moved to write things, sat down and did them, and then said, lo and behold, I've got a lot of them. They seem to all have a unifying theme of snow, or family, etc. How did how did the book come about? And then
Well,
how did this novel come about?
pardon me. The short stories came about because Mark Estrin at Fomite, who is someone I've represented in the past, and whose authors I have represented at Fomite, suddenly I think realized by reviewing my website that I actually wrote. I only made a passing reference to it on my publicity website at that time. And he asked if I had a collection, and I immediately said no. And then about a year later, I thought, my dad and I, who's now 84, sort of started saying, why not? Why not try this? Why not try that? So I picked up some stories that people hadn't liked and sent them out because I liked them, and why not?
Right.
And they were accepted. And so then I wrote to Mark and asked if he would be interested in a collection. I had 10 that I thought could work. And he said, sure. And I threw them together and sent them to him. I mean, truly, I had 5 minutes and I threw them together and I sent them to him. The novel came about because I just wasn't done with Sarah Glinia now at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear that. So will a lot of people that have read the stories be, and those that haven't will be excited too. They just don't know it yet. They haven't met them. But so now, that has been just, you're pulled to write. You write happy accidents. You do this collection, and then you keep writing because you're interested in the characters. But what's next, or what's working? What are you doing now?
What's so interesting is I can't write at dedicated times. If it's between a client and me, the client has to come first. That's the way we work. It's ethical, and it's just the way it has to be. So between kids and everything else, I write when I can. And so I write what I want. And I've also completed a middle grade novel and a children's picture book. And the children's picture book has been edited and is done. It's just nobody wants it. And the middle grade novel, I'm now on year 11 and probably draft 85.
Okay, so now tell me, do you write humor? Because you're funny. You're a very funny woman. And your stories were deeply felt, and there were moments of lightness or levity, but it wasn't humor.
I would say there are moments of lightness and levity, but I don't think of myself as a funny person at all. So
you've been really funny today.
Oh, have I?
Yes, you've been making me laugh since we got on.
I don't know these things about myself. How did I get to 51 and be so, I don't know. How lovely to discover things late in life, right? I don't know.
It's great. You just keep evolving.
I mean, that's what you have to do to stay alive.
Exactly.
But I think there's always a light touch. Even there's some painful things in my novel that they're dealing with. But it's usually Al who'll come up with a joke. And yeah, it's not humor, but I believe a light touch is essential. I think you can't write about really heartfelt, deep things and not have some humor, or people are just going to get worn out emotionally.
I agree with you. And like, I think about, that real thing we do called life, and how so many times my husband thinks I'm nuts because I have a really fast rebound to funny, mechanism. It's really horrible. It's really horrible. And I'm laughing about it almost while it's happening. He's like, what is wrong with you? And I said, if you can't laugh, you're dying. You've got to rebound and find it. And I love that in a book where you rescue a reader and help them see that that's how you survive these moments, not just in the book, but really that's how you survive, is with a light touch.
Well, I think so. I mean, and I think you can't have, when you're talking about what ties people together, it's not just love or loss or experience or blood. it's whether or not you're going to make it the distance with each other. And I think that humor and the ability to look on the bright side, those kinds of coping mechanisms that we adopt in daily life are what our characters are trying to adopt too.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, that's essential. But I wouldn't say I'm a funny If I sat down to write something intentionally funny, I could not do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that we sit down and we write what we write. We have
Yeah.
our way of seeing the world and expressing what we see and what we hope for it. And so it's not surprising that some of that comes out of you, though, is that ability to see the lightness and levity too, at the same time as the tough things are going on. And I think that right now that people, that's a good thing for all of us to learn, because certainly we could all hunker down in a whole mess of dark, right? It's everything's hard, everything's different, but it's still beautiful outside. The sun's still shining, and our kids still are adorable, and you know, say the darndest things or whatever, or your front the view on my screen. There's something that we can be grateful for, that we can find the lightness in. And I left your book, even though there were hard things in it, not feeling tragedy. I left feeling hopeful. I left feeling, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like
hope,
because of the love, the heart, the love, the heart, the hope. So, and a little cold. I was a little cold.
It might have been welcome. You know, a little chilly hot chocolate. Yeah.
I know, a flower peeking through the snow. Come on. But no, I loved it. I really did. And I'm looking forward to the novel. And so with respect to the novel, I will wait patiently until I'm able to be one of those lucky few that see it. But when you have it out, you have to come back on and talk to me about it.
I would love to. I was as you know, so excited to be on today. So it would be my privilege to be able to come back. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And for those that read me, that are watching, and I hope all of you fall in that category. A lot of my books are set in Wyoming, or my more recent books anyway. And I want you to know that not only does she have snow, but as she said, 18 years in Colorado. But what did you tell me before we got on the show about Wyoming? This gets you some readers here. You said you
love Wyoming. I love Wyoming. Yes. Actually, I miss Wyoming.
I
miss Wyoming. Yeah.
Because she honestly said that, and I wanted you guys to know that wasn't just a plant, because it made my heart warm and happy. Most of the time people are like, what the hell are you doing in Wyoming? Is there anything there? Is there buffalo? What is there there? It's like, no, there's no people like you. That's what they're, not you, but you in general. We're almost all by ourselves. So it's a fun to learn that you had a soft spot for our
very much so
our barren land up here.
No, I think it's the last frontier. I would love to live there.
It really is amazing. And so one last plug for Wyoming. My husband and I both still work full time, and we also run a lodge during the warm months, as Caitlin and I were talking about. But every now and then we still sneak away and try to do something, that isn't just work. And we drove from east to west across Wyoming, and it's a route you take if you're coming from the East Coast. But I've always done south to north, because I'm coming from Texas or wherever. And I'll tell you, there's just something about making that trek and the astounding geography that it just makes my heart just, it's the hallelujah chorus inside me, just, oh. But it's also beautiful from south to north. And I feel that way about Utah as well. I think Utah is astounding.
Utah is gorgeous. I think what differentiates Utah from Wyoming for me, and Utah, I mean, arches. I'll never forget arches. And
it's so cool.
Delicate arch at sunset, because I certainly wouldn't have been up for sunrise. But I love Wyoming's clear view. In certain spots of Wyoming, it's just land.
Yeah, you see it forever. To me, it looks like a reef. It looks like the bottom and the clouds and air above it, or the water, and you see all those colors and the way the land ripples, and you get high and you see that, and the power of what shaped it, to me, is just, it's just bigger than the rest of us. It's just enormous.
Yep.
Big
I
Wyoming.
find that
Love
very
Wyoming.
moving, and that description very moving. And I think that's what I love and that's what I miss.
Well, come sometime at Bighorn Hideaway House and stand on Medicine Wheel at the top of the Bighorns and look out across the Bighorn Basin towards the and Yellowstone and Du Bois. It's just, you get that. It's so cool. Well, anyway, so I hijacked your interview to talk about Wyoming. We did talk a lot about snow. So I wanted to remind you guys that you can pick up a copy of Till Lay to Rest Our Ghosts anywhere online. Ask your favorite bookstore to order it for you if it's not available to you, or your library. You can also get more information about Caitlin, her publicity and publicist services, and her writing at her website. And you can do the same for me on mine, or you can read my books through Kindle Unlimited free, or even if you're into audiobooks, there's a website there where you can type in my name and you can, you know, scarf up the last of my free codes that are available there and get a free listen. And when you're thinking about what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks, be sure to check the website where you can see the book that we're going to be discussing and the author we're going to be talking about, and you can go out there and preview it for yourself. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Caitlin, have a good one.
You too. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.